What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lyrics to Go. I'm Daniel Maté. What you're about to watch is a short clip from a recent live stream I did. I do these every Monday night, pretty much. We pick one artist or group or even a single album and just listen in depth, pause, talk about the lyrics, and just get to deepen our appreciation of the lyrical side of things, which is the whole point of this channel. Now, those streams are available to everybody every Monday night. I invite you to come out, check out what we're doing each week. It's always different. If you want to see the entire stream after the fact, that's available to my Patreon subscribers only. And you can become one by going to patreon.com/lyrics2go. There's a whole bunch of other perks as well, including bonus episodes and custom playlists and all kinds of other good stuff. So, hope you'll check that out. And for now, please enjoy this clip.
So when I come to any lyric, I think I ask myself, it's called the head by century. I ask myself, what does it mean to be ahead by a century? What does that mean to be ahead by a century? And if you teach 19th century literature like I do, you're looking at 50 or 60 people, or sometimes 250 people. And I think one of the things that was on my mind when I was them was, well, why does Jane Austen matter now? Like, why should I read Pride and Prejudice? 1813, it's 2021. I'm really not that interested. What's Jane Austen got to say to me? Or what's Wordsworth got to say to me? Or what's, any poet, any artist from 100 or 400 or 500 years ago. And so I think part of my job is to say, well, here's why you want to read Jane Austen now. Because she's talking about what it means to be you at some level. And I passionately believe that. And so someone like Jane Austen, for example, was ahead by a century. Or a Jane Austen contemporary, whose name is Mary Wollstonecraft, wrote an essay in 1792 called The Vindication of the Rights of Woman. And in The Vindication of the Rights of Woman, she says, you know what? She writes, the concluding line is, I call for justice for one half of the human race. And what she's saying is, I think men and women should be treated equally. That's what she's saying. Now, Mary Wollstonecraft, that's 1792. So that's 229 years ago. So Mary Wollstonecraft is ahead. And so in this country, for example, when women are paid the same as men, then Mary Wollstonecraft will no longer be ahead by 230 years. Until that time, she is. She is ahead by 200. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous that we can't solve that. That should have been solved. And so when I think about ahead by a century, I think, well, Mary Wollstonecraft's ahead by 230. And Jane Austen is ahead because they see our culture and they see what's wrong, like Martin Luther King in the says, I have a dream. And in the article, I try to say, Martin Luther King said that in 1963. Are we going to realize Martin Luther King's dream of equality in 100 years' time? And given where we are right now, I think we're not going to make it. I don't think in 2063 we are going to have the society that Martin Luther King dreamt about. So ahead by a century, to me, there are other interpretations, of course, but to me, it means a voice or a painting or a spirit or an idea or a statement or a musical expression that says, here's where our culture needs to get to. And that's why we need poets. That's why we need art. Because we need to know what we're aiming at, and we need to remedy the things that are wrong. And in this country, I hardly need say, in the last couple of months, we've seen plenty of what's wrong.
Yeah, in some ways, we're way behind by several centuries in terms of what we're willing to know. Knowledge not being a question of availability, but willingness in the case of these so-called revelations about residential schools. But let me ask you this. So yes, I mean, on the cultural level, people being ahead of their time, but Downey doesn't couch it in those terms at all in this lyric. It's a relationship song. It's like a first crush song almost. And he paints this image of, first thing we'd climb a tree. It's a very odd conjugation or tense there. It's not like first thing we climbed the tree. First thing we would climb a tree, and maybe then we'd talk. I remember being very struck by that. In the day-to-day of our childhood, or sit silently and listen to our thoughts. That's beautiful, and it's not a perfect rhyme which in musical
No,
theater wouldn't fly, but it's very nice. It works,
Well,
and juxtaposing then maybe when we talk or listen to our thoughts, that's gorgeous. And
yes.
then, illusions of someday cast in a golden light, no dress rehearsal, this is our life, another near rhyme. And then there's the hornet, and then we get to the chorus. You got the revenge and death. This is what I'd call the pre-chorus, right? That's where the hornet stung me, and I had a feverish dream. Later, he changes it to serious dream, and mental
Yes.
note of that. I'm going to put a pin in that because that's another thing he does a lot. He'll change one word.
Yeah.
He'll like pivot and he'll make one adjustment. Like I want to look at Locked in the Trunk of a Car where he does that brilliantly. But anyway, we'll come back to that. With Revenge and Doubt, tonight we smoked them out. And then we have the chorus, you are ahead by a century, presumably the person he climbed the tree with.
Presumably.
So on the interpersonal level, how does that concept of being ahead by a century map on, do you think?
Well, I love the first line. I'll just say first thing we climb a tree, because it's so childlike.
Yes.
I remember my boys, our boys, and they're so excited to tell you about the day. Well, first thing we did what we did. Not hi Dad, today first thing we did. And so there's that urgency and that excitement of childhood right from the start. And they'd go up into the street, and maybe they'd talk, and maybe they wouldn't. And so there's this sense that they're together in childhood. Maybe we talk or maybe we wouldn't. And we'd think about the future, and the future looked pretty good, illusions of a golden light. And that was our life, right? But now, time has moved on, and that togetherness
wow. Sorry, I just realized something.
Okay.
I always heard it as illusions of someday casting a golden light. Like someday we will be casting. No, but someday is the object of the illusions are about someday.
Yeah.
And the illusions are cast in a golden light. That's
right. Yeah, that's what I read.
Yeah,
and
that's correct. Yeah.
So what happens is that this togetherness of climbing up into a tree and talking. What are they talking about? What do you talk about when you're 7 and 5 sitting in a tree? It's a magical thing. And then time goes on, and that togetherness, that unity, maybe we'd talk, maybe we wouldn't, that unison, a sense of unity has lapsed because she or he, the partner, the person, presumably the one on the tree, has moved ahead, and the voice, the singer, Downey, is stuck. He's stuck. He's not. She's ahead by a century, and he's stuck because of things like revenge and doubt. And if we all gave into notions of revenge and doubt, I think I say in the piece that many people are addled by things like revenge and doubt are not things that a child thinks about. Revenge and doubt are things that you have to deal with when you get older. And the sense that you're going to smoke them out, well, of course, the notion is you're going to smoke out the hornets, but also really, if you want to move forward, you got to get rid of things like getting your own back, revenge, doubt, anger, fear. These are the things that hold us back. And the woman or the person who's the object of Downey's admiration or affection or longing or desire, whatever it is, has been able to do that. And the voice of the song, it seems to me, hasn't been able to do it. And he's hoping to do it, which is why he says tonight we smoke them out. Because if I'm ever going to catch up to you, I got to get rid of, I got to get rid of the things that addle us all. You can't be angry all the time.
Yeah, if only it was smoking out revenge and doubt was something you could put in your calendar. Like, I'm doing that tonight.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to grow up and not be angry about everything that ticks me off.
Yeah.
But it's an easier way. It's a better way to live if you can do it. Very hard to do.
It is. And I know that feeling of watching my peers or friends or siblings surpass me in various ways. And it's intangible. You just see someone, whether it's all my friends getting married and having kids or people just being able to move past certain things. And I think everyone has their own trajectories, right? But that feeling of, I'm not living up to where you're at. I can't catch up. And the parity we used to enjoy that was just granted to us, we can't get it back. The ice is tilted. Mila has
and
to
we
go.
have to get it back. We have to get it back, Daniel, because this isn't a dress rehearsal. This is our life.
Right.
We you know, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but the magnificence of the final line where he says, "Disappointing you is getting me down."
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't want this, man. I've gotta find a way of catching up to you, because disappointing you, you know, we've all disappointed people that we love. Ghastly, right? Ghastly.
Yeah.
And you know, because of the candor and the honesty of Downey, that's what that's about, right? I'm addled by revenge and doubt, and instead of catching up to you, I keep disappointing you, and it's getting me down.
And of course,
I just can't think of a more powerful way to finish a lyric.
It's an amazing finish, and of course, he places the word "down" on the highest note in the entire song. And disappointing you's getting me down. You know, the major third above the octave. Mila has to leave us briefly, or in a few. She doesn't have to leave us briefly. She has to leave us imminently. So I want to bring her back in. Any closing thoughts, either about this lyric, which I know you're not super familiar with, or anything else about the hip? Any lyrics that you love that you hope we can cover in the rest of the stream, and you can come back and watch it? Or just any parting words?
Yeah, I mean, I really like this lyric as well. It kind of makes me think about like this sort of, I don't want to like get into political theory because I'm here explicitly not to do that, but it makes me like think of this concept of like Rousseau's concept of self-love, where he talks about like how we kind of like derive pleasure, we derive pleasure from like pleasing people because because of the way that they approve of us when we please them. So like if you make someone like a cake, you don't enjoy it because like they're enjoying it and you like to see them enjoying themselves. You fundamentally enjoy it because them enjoying it is a signal of approval of you. And so when you disappoint someone, like that's one of the like most ultimate ways of like feeling down in a sense, because it's like, you know, it shows like it like undermines your own self-love. So I really like that line. I guess like parting stuff, I would say like The Luxury is an amazing song. I also was gonna like chime in for a bit because there's a lyric about pornography, and it made me also think of The Luxury because he has a really cool line where he says like, she said, "Why are you partial to that Playboy con when you can see me naked anytime you want?" And I thought that was like, I don't know, I could be reading into it, but there's like a kind of interesting cultural commentary there, because like it seems to me that like things have become increasingly more like pornography is replacing like real sexual intimacy and like sexual connections between people. And I feel like he, in like both those lyrics that we read, he kind of like that. I don't know. I just saw that in there, but I could also totally just be projecting my politics.
No, I no, you're never project. When you're doing lyric interpretation, I think what you're doing is you're pulling out an ingredient. You know, you're identifying something it's there because you saw it. It's not, you know, whether he consciously intended it. That reminds me. There's also that cheeky line in what flamenco. Maybe a prostitute can teach you how to take a compliment. And then, but also there's a thread in terms of what she said to him in Luxury, right? Why do you fall for that Playboy con? There's a lot of lyrics where like a lover is like seeing through another, and often it's a woman talking to him. So something about like, I could drag you to New York City, and she says, nobody drags me anywhere. You know, there's a real playful, intimate dialectic in his things where it's not like, hey, I rolled up on this girl and I was like, hey baby, you know, and then but it's more like it's the mature intercourse of smart, articulate people playing with attraction and repulsion and all this stuff. So I'm glad you brought that out. I think that's there, and yeah, we could use more voices like that these days, I think. And you and I have talked about that a lot.
Yes, we have. So yeah, I guess like more to come on my thoughts. Maybe I'll write something, but thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being on. It's great to see you. Thanks for everything you, all your thoughts really contributed. So thanks for making time.
Of course. All right. Well, have fun, everyone.
All right. Bye,
Have a good
Mila.
evening.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. So that's ahead by a century. I feel like that was pretty. TJ, anything you want to add now that we've broken it all down? You've been sitting patiently.
Yeah, just to build on something we talked about before, but it is truly remarkable that the key line in this song is, "And disappointing you is getting me down." Everything builds up to that line, and that is one of the most sung along to lines in the history of Canadian popular music. Like, I would never have put my money on that, before the hip had existed. It was like, that's going to be the line everyone sings along to in a stadium. Disappointing you's getting me down. Much less to end their final concert, to end their live career.
What Mila said about Rousseau is, that really hit me. Like, there is nothing I like less, I think, than feeling like I disappointed someone I care about.
I think Daniel.
Sorry, one last thing. Some people live their entire lives in fear of that, in neurotic fear of that, and they do great harm to themselves. They suppress themselves, right? So it's possible to turn that into a kind of cage, but there is a healthy version of it where, in some ways, we're creatures of each other's esteem. Yes, self-esteem is important, but we are, all this new age stuff about codependency. No, we're interdependent. We just are, and we need each other. And Downey's lyrics have that plaintive vulnerability to them. That really, I think, what's interesting, actually. Sorry, Rob, I'm delaying what you were about to say.
No, please.
I was just watching their Woodstock set from '99. And when he comes on the stage and the band starts playing Grace 2, as the opening music, which is quite long, plays, he says to the crowd, among other things, he says, "We are here to study you. We are ascertaining you." There's an interrelationship that he foregrounds with his audience all the time. So even while he's doing his thing and you don't necessarily understand him, he's in conversation with some part of you. And I think everyone gets that. And I think what you said about them being themselves is so important, because I've been looking for the key and, well, what's the trick? Like, what's their craft? Like, how do they do it? Well, fuck technically. It's who they're being.
Yeah.
It's who they're being. That's what radiates and resonates. And that's what everyone's so attracted to. Anyway, back to you.
They said Canada is really important. There's a great, forgive me, but there's a great Canadian poet whose name is Earl Burney, and he writes a poem called Can Lit. And one of the lines, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but one of the lines is the poet in America is usually considered one of the founding figures of American poetry is Walt Whitman. And Earl Burney in Canada writes this poem called Can Lit, and he says, "Something, something, something no Whitman wanted. It is by our lack of ghosts that we are haunted." And that notion of Canada being a place where it's a lack of ghosts that we are haunted. And what the hip told us and what Bernie knew is, I mean, if the last 2 months haven't told us that there are lots of ghosts that should be haunting us, I'm not sure what does. What Downey brought out, I think, for me, is that there are plenty of ghosts, there are plenty of stories, there are plenty of figures, there are plenty of anti-heroes, there is plenty of things to think about, talk about, and process so that we can understand why Canada is where it is today. So it's not that we don't have any ghosts, it's that we don't mythologize, talk about, realize, have programs like this where we get to explore them. And that's what's valuable, it seems to me. That's what art is designed to do. It's designed, I think, one of the things it can do is just make us stop and reflect. What does it mean to be ahead by a century? And I guess I just wanted to add, Daniel, just something that TJ said about, and disappointing is getting me down on the highest note. Of course, the word down is on the highest note, and down has got, down E has got down in it. There are all kinds of things that are happening, I think. But it's that everybody shares that sense of, the terribleness of letting somebody down. Terrible.
Yeah.
And everybody knows what that is. And Downey's up there, very vulnerable, saying, disappointing is getting me down. And everybody goes, I know what that feels like. And then it goes boom. Right? I think that's what Downey gave us, among many other things. But that's one of the things he gave us. And I agree with TJ that to orchestrate that doesn't happen by accident. I've studied poetry for a long time. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because a really smart intellect sits down and crafts it and polishes it and pushes it and rejects it and goes back to it until he gets that final line in that way. And I think that the impact is in relation to how much passion and energy the lyricist puts into it.
As a lyricist myself, amen to that. I mean, Oscar Hammerstein called it polishing the top of the Empire State Building.
Right.
Putting all those things that maybe no one will ever see.
Yep.
But it makes it what it is.